What if tomorrow morning you simply weren't there anymore? No goodbye, no trace, just an empty room where your life used to be. And the people who love you left to piece together a fragment of a story that may never have an ending. This is what happened on a summer morning in Ireland, when the sun rose over a small town called Tullamore, and a young woman named Fiona just vanished. They say that in every disappearance, there are two victims, the one who vanishes and the one who waits. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes the waiting can kill you too. Picture this with me, if you will. It's August, and the Irish countryside is painted in that particular shade of green that only exists when summer is about to surrender to autumn. In a modest apartment on Church Street, a young woman stirs awake. Her name is Fiona, and she carries within her the weight of new life. 7 months of pregnancy that has transformed her body into something both powerful and vulnerable. She's 25, with the kind of beauty that makes strangers turn their heads on the street. But more than that, she possesses something rarer, genuine happiness. Tomorrow feels full of promise. She's been shopping for baby clothes with her mother, her hands tracing tiny sleeves and imagining the child who will fill them. This morning, like so many mornings before, her partner John prepares for another day of farm work. They exchange the kind of comfortable words that couples share when love has settled into routine. Nothing extraordinary. Nothing that would suggest this moment is precious because it's the last. At 6 a.m, John leaves for his family's farm. Fiona is still in bed, drowsy with particular exhaustion that comes with creating life. By evening, she will be gone forever. But here's what haunts me about this story. Fiona didn't disappear into thin air. Someone made her disappear. Someone who knew her laugh, who had perhaps shared meals with her, who could look into her eyes and still choose to extinguish the light there. The question isn't just what happened to Fiona. The question is, how well do we really know the people we trust? When Fiona's friend arrived at the apartment later that day and found no answer at the door, a chill must have run down her spine. You know that feeling when normalcy suddenly feels wrong, when the silence on the other side of the door carries weight. By the next day, Fiona's family knew something terrible had happened. You don't simply leave when you're 7 months pregnant and planning a future. You don't abandon the baby clothes you bought with such care, the dreams you've been nurturing alongside the life growing inside you. The searches began immediately. Picture the scene. Helicopters cutting through the Irish sky, their blades beating like mechanical hearts over the landscape. Search dogs with their noses to ground, following invisible trails that lead nowhere. Divers plunging into the cold waters of canals and rivers, looking for something no one wanted to find. But here's what's interesting and disturbing. Within days of the search beginning, a local man approached the police with a story that would haunt this case for decades. He claimed he saw 2 men carrying what appeared to be a roll carpet from Fiona's apartment building. Picture it. The weight of it, the awkward way they maneuvered it into the back of a 4-wheel drive vehicle. He watched them drive away, probably thinking nothing of it at the time, until Fiona disappeared. Another witness came forward with an even more chilling detail. They were nearly forced off the road by a speeding vehicle, the same type of 4-wheel drive, racing toward the sleeve blue mountains on the night Fiona was last seen alive. Now, imagine being the investigators trying to piece this together. You have a pregnant woman who vanishes without a trace. You have witnesses describing suspicious activity. And you have mountains, endless, dense, perfect for hiding secrets that you never want found. But most importantly, you have someone who should have been the most desperate to find her, acting, let's say, strangely calm. John, Fiona's partner, claimed he was at his family's farm when she disappeared. A simple alibi. The kind that should be easy to verify, easy to believe. But the investigators weren't convinced. In April the following year, something unprecedented happened. Not just John, but his 3 sisters and his father, an entire family, were arrested for questioning. Picture that scene. Police cars pulling up to the farm, the weight of suspicion falling on people who shared the same name, the same blood, possibly the same secrets. They were all released without charges. But in investigations like this, being released doesn't mean being cleared. It just means the evidence isn't strong enough yet. Years passed. The case grew cold, but it never died. And then something extraordinary happened. A woman living thousands of miles away in Canada contacted the Irish police with a story that seemed too terrible to believe. She was in an abusive relationship. She said her partner, a man who had fled Ireland years earlier, would threaten her during his violent rages. But it wasn't just the threat of physical harm that terrified her. It was what he told her he had done before. "I've killed before," he would say, "and I'll kill you too." He told her about a pregnant woman named Fiona. He claimed he had buried her in the Slieve Blue Mountains. And then, and this is the detail that makes your blood run cold, he took his current partner to Ireland on what she thought was a romantic vacation. But instead of showing her tourist sites, he led her to a specific area of forest. "She's buried here," he told her, pointing to the ground beneath their feet. Imagine being that woman. Imagine standing in a foreign forest, realizing that the man you thought you knew is something else entirely. Imagine the weight of that secret, the fear that you might be next. The Irish police acted on her information. They brought in forensic archaeologists, the best dogs, the most advanced equipment. They dug. They searched. They hoped. They found nothing. But here's what troubles me. Either this woman was lying, which seems unlikely given the personal cost of coming forward, or someone is very, very good at hiding bodies. Sometimes the most haunting clues are the ones that raise more questions than they answer. 12 years after Fiona disappeared, hikers in the Slieve Blue Mountains made a discovery that sent chills through everyone connected to the case. Deep in the forest, someone had placed a makeshift cross, carved into it with words, "Fiona Pender, buried here, August 22nd, 1996. But here's the thing that makes this discovery so unsettling. Fiona was last seen alive on August 23rd. Whoever made that cross claimed she was buried the day before she officially disappeared. Was it a cruel hoax? A confession disguised as a memorial? Or something else entirely? Evidence that someone knew exactly what had happened to her, and when. The police searched the area around the cross extensively. Once again, they found nothing. But they didn't dismiss it as a prank. There was something about it, the location, the detail, the timing, that suggested whoever placed it there knew more than they were saying. Think about that for a moment. Someone took the time to craft a cross, to carve those specific words, to place it in a remote location where it might never be found. What kind of person does that? Someone consumed by guilt? Someone playing a sick game? Or someone trying to tell a truth they can't speak aloud? If you believe stories like this should be told, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. While investigators chase leads and search for us, Fiona's family lived in a special kind of hell. Josephine, her mother, became the public face of their private anguish. She appeared on television, spoke to newspapers, organized searches. She refused to let her daughter become just another statistic, another cold case file gathering dust. But grief has its own gravity. It pulls everything into its orbit, including those who should be there to provide strength. Sean, Fiona's father, had already lost one child. His son Mark had died in a motorcycle accident just a year before Fiona disappeared. Now, with his daughter gone and his unborn grandchild lost forever, Something inside him broke in a way that couldn't be repaired. In the year 2000, for years after Fiona vanished, Sean was found dead in the family home. The official cause wasn't listed, but Josephine knew the truth. He had taken his own life. The weight of losing 2 children, 3, if you count the unborn baby, was more than any father should have to bear. He couldn't live without his children, Josephine told reporters. Imagine being Josephine in that moment. Your daughter is missing, possibly dead. Your husband has chosen death over the pain of not knowing. You're left alone with questions that have no answers, with a grief that has no end. But she continued searching. She continued hoping. She continued believing that someday, somehow, she would know what happened to Fiona. Josephine died in 2017, 21 years after her daughter disappeared. She never got the answers she was looking for. She never got to bury her child. She never got justice. Earlier this year, something changed. After nearly 3 decades of cold leads and false hopes, investigators received what they called credible information from someone who knew both Fiona and the main suspect personally. Picture the scene. Police cordoning off areas of farmland, bringing in the heavy machinery, the careful archaeological methods, media crews gathering, families holding their breath, investigators hoping that this time, finally, they might find what they've been looking for. The searches were extensive, methodical, professional. They covered areas that had been searched before and new locations suggested by the recent information. For days, the work continued. And then, once again, nothing. But here's what I find most interesting about these recent developments. The case has been officially upgraded from a missing person investigation to a murder inquiry. That tells us something significant. After all these years, with all the searches that have turned up empty, the police are confident enough to state publicly that they believe Fiona was murdered. They believe they know who did it. They believe they know how. The only thing they don't have is her body. The main suspect in Fiona's disappearance left Ireland years ago. He now lives thousands of miles away, in what investigators call self-imposed exile. Think about that phrase, self-imposed exile. It suggests someone who can't or won't return home. Someone who perhaps knows that coming back might mean facing questions he doesn't want to answer. The authorities know where he is. They know his name. They believe he's responsible for Fiona's death. But without a body, without definitive proof, they can't request his extradition. He remains free, protected by distance and the burden of proof that lies at the heart of every justice system. Imagine being that person, if he is indeed guilty. Imagine waking up every morning in a foreign country, knowing that back home, people are still looking for evidence of what you've done. Imagine the weight of that secret. The fear that someday someone might find what you've hidden so carefully. Or imagine the alternative, that he's innocent, living under a cloud of suspicion for a crime he didn't commit, unable to return home without being seen as a murderer on the run. Either way, it's a kind of prison. Fiona's disappearance is part of something larger and more troubling. In the 1990s, several young women vanished from the same region of Ireland. They called it the Vanishing Triangle. Young women who simply disappeared, leaving behind families, friends, and questions that still echo today. The investigators established something called Operation Trace to determine if these disappearances were connected. Were they the work of a serial killer, a coordinated effort, or simply a tragic coincidence? Multiple families struck by separate horrors? For some of these cases, including Fiona's, the police believe they know who's responsible. The mystery isn't who, it's where. Where are the bodies? Where is the evidence? Where is the justice that has been denied for so long? There's something particularly cruel about this type of crime. When someone is murdered and their body is found, there's horror, yes, but there's also closure. Families can grieve, hold funerals, visit graves. justice can be pursued. But when someone simply vanishes, the wounds never heal. Hope and despair exist side by side. Every phone call might be the one that brings news. Every knock at the door might be the police with answers. It's a special kind of torture, and it's exactly what Fiona's family endured for decades. Let me tell you about something that happened more recently. Something that shows how these old crimes continue to cast shadows over the living. In Tullamore, there's a walking path along the canal named Fiona's Way, a tribute to her memory, a way for community to keep her name alive. It's meant to be a place of peace, of remembrance. In 2022, a young teacher named Aisling Murphy was murdered while running along Fiona's Way. Think about that for a moment. A path created to honor one woman, who was killed became the site where another woman died. It's as if violence has infected that place, as if the ground itself remembers the blood that was spilled there. This is what unsolved crimes do to communities. They leave wounds that don't heal properly. They create places where fear lives alongside memory. They remind us that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like neighbors, partners, people we trust. There's something I want you to consider as we near the end of this story. Throughout all these years of searching, investigating, and hoping, someone's been watching, maybe multiple people. If Fiona was indeed murdered by someone she knew, and the evidence strongly suggests this, then there are people who have kept silent for nearly 3 decades. Maybe they suspected something but didn't want to believe it. Maybe they were threatened into silence. Maybe they were involved in covering up the crime. But most likely, they've been carrying the weight of what they know or what they suspect for all these years. I think about the social media posts from people who claim to have known Fiona, her family, even the suspect. One person wrote that everyone knows who did it and that there are rumors about how his family helped hide the body. Whether those rumors are true or not, think about what it means to live in a community where such things are whispered, where everyone has suspicions, but no one has proof, where justice feels always just out of reach. It's a kind of collective trauma, a shared burden of knowledge that can't be spoken aloud. So here we are, nearly 30 years later, and Fiona Pender is still missing. Her family is gone now. Her father couldn't bear the weight of not knowing. Her mother died without ever learning the truth. The baby she was carrying would be an adult now, with children of their own perhaps. The searches continue. The investigation remains active. Somewhere, someone knows what happened to her. Maybe they're listening to this story right now. But here's what haunts me most about this case. It's not unique. Right now, as you listen to these words, there are families waiting for answers about their own missing loved ones. There are people carrying secrets about crimes they witnessed or participated in. There are communities where everyone knows something terrible happened, but no one knows enough to prove it. Fiona's story is her story too. The truth has weight, you know. It presses down on those who carry it, demanding to be released. Sometimes it takes decades, but eventually the weight becomes too much to bear. Someone, somewhere, knows what happened to Fiona Pender. Someone knows where she rests. Someone has been carrying that knowledge for 28 years. The question isn't whether the truth will come out. The question is when. And until then, we wait. We remember. We hope that justice, though delayed, is not denied forever, because Fiona deserves better than silence. She deserves better than becoming a ghost story, a cautionary tale, a mystery that true crime enthusiasts discuss in hushed tones. She deserves to come home. Sometimes, the dead speak to us not through supernatural means, but through the persistence of those who refuse to let them be forgotten. Fiona is still speaking. The question is, are we listening?